Welcome to the groundbreaking news program that delves into the heart of Mormonism. Your weekly window into the unique intersection of news, history, and culture that resonates with the tapestry of Mormonism. So whether you are tuning in from the heart of Utah or joining us from around the world, your favorite news program starts now, where news meets insight and the stories of our faith unfold.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome once again to the Mormon Newscast. Today's date is May 5th, 2025. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Rebecca Biblioteca, how are you?
Happy Cinco de Mayo to you too. I am fabulous.
And Bill?
Yesterday was great. May the 4th be with you. That was yesterday. So today's May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, and both holidays went by hardly recognizable by me.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry to hear that. And I find Cinco de Mayo absolutely fine in my book because nobody likes the French. Okay, moving on from there. We have got some real news tonight. Now, this first is an announcement that we're putting up here. This is in all seriousness. It's about the death of a missionary that happened recently. We're just going to put up a picture of him. And then we'll get to the order. Excuse me, I jumped that, Rebecca. LDS missionary was killed in an auto/bike accident. He was on the bike. The other guy was in the auto. The LDS church statement is this: it is with much sadness that we share with you that a tragic accident in North Carolina has claimed the life of a young missionary of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Elder Aleki Langi, 18, was killed on Thursday, May 1st, 2025, after the driver of a car apparently lost control and veered onto the sidewalk. A second missionary was also hit, sustaining minor injuries. He was treated and released from the hospital. A third companion was not injured. Elder Langi began his missionary service in March 2025, barely 2 months ago, not even probably, and is from the Magna Second Ward in the Salt Lake, Utah West Stake. He was on a temporary reassignment in the North Carolina Charlotte Mission while awaiting a visa to serve in the Jamaica Kingston Mission. So there's that announcement. Yeah. And we just do that because it is part of the news, and this is a news show. I don't have any comments to make about it. Did either of you, except that it's tragic?
Just
It
condolences.
always makes me sad every
Why does
time
it
I
make you
see
sad?
those. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just, I don't know. Having had missionaries, and even if I hadn't, it's just he's only 18, so we're really sorry.
Yeah. All right. So going back to the order of stories, which I skipped over in my excitement. Michelle Stone says goodbye to polygamy problems. That's my story. It'll be the lead story tonight. We got some late breaking news on that one. Next story. So the Fairview final decision update. Is there a temple going to be in Fairview? Is that what that's about? That's Rebecca's story.
Yeah, let's not do a spoiler yet.
She'll tell us all about it. Crosses becoming symbol of Latter-day Saints in their struggle against vampires. Does the LDS give back bad tithing? And that'll be Bill's story. Yeah, that's a very interesting story on that one. Man on drugs goes to church. Film at 11. And a warning about the Mormon Stories podcast. Yes, this is a good warning. You'll want to stay tuned for that. But first up is Michelle Stone. She who has had until recently a channel called 132 Problems. She is a polygamy denier. She wants to be called a monogamy affirmer. It all adds up to she advocates for the position that Joseph Smith did not practice polygamy. He didn't introduce it. This was done by Heber and Brigham, and then they wrote the history after they may or may not have been involved in Joseph Smith's assassination in order to write Joseph Smith back into the polygamy narrative. She, yesterday morning on May 4th, released this video saying she is going to be saying goodbye. It was like a 12-minute video, I think it was. Yeah, it's right there, 12:39. That she was saying goodbye, that she was taking down her podcasts, all of them, soon, and that she had been directed to do so. Obviously, that the church was involved, and they were leaning on her and telling her she had to make a choice between excommunication or taking down your podcast. That much was clear. What was not clear was until right before the show, actually just 30 minutes ago, I was going to get a screen grab. Actually, I was just checking to see if she had taken down her podcasts, and she had taken them all down except for this last one, 168, which is the one where she said goodbye yesterday, right? But then, what to my wondering eye should appear? And Michelle says, hello. So now, within this past hour, all of Michelle's old videos under 132 problems are reappearing on YouTube under a new channel called 132 Solutions, reclaiming the polygamy narrative. So, rising like a phoenix from the ashes in order to give the bird to the brethren. Now, what do you think about that? That's the breaking news.
Do we know who is behind that channel? Because it sounds like it's not Michelle. Sounds like she has given the body of her work to someone else to sort of curate and make sure it's still out there.
Unless she's doing it herself. I guess she can say with a straight face that she kept her promise that she would take down all her videos. She didn't say she wouldn't put them back up.
Now
Go ahead.
She hasn't said the reason why the other channel came down, correct?
No, but she left, all the crumbs that led right to the witch's candy house.
And what is the witch's handy house?
That the word came down from above that she was getting too popular. She was teaching something that the church didn't want to have taught. There's a whole lot of people who are following her, and she is leading people out of the church, even if she's not trying to. That's what she's doing.
Yeah.
And so this is an infection in the body politic of Mormonism that they have to excise. And she is she's the boil that must be lanced, to speak in your lingo there, Bill.
Okay.
How
nice.
vivid. How vivid. Can I just say, from a podcasting perspective, this makes no sense unless someone were coercing her. People probably know you have subscribers and you build those up over time. And if you're monetizing, you're making some money off your videos. You would never move all of the body of your work over to a channel that has no subscribers when you have built up, like Michelle, almost 120,000 subscribers. Now that's huge. You would never move your videos from that to a channel where there are no subscribers to have to start from scratch. It makes no sense unless there's someone on the other side pressuring you. You would never do that.
I know someone, at least one person in the comments somewhere had said that they thought that Michelle had realized the error of her ways. And then I thought, oh, come on. Did you actually listen to what she said? It's clear she hasn't changed her mind. And she would have said if she had. But no, she still thinks it's a valuable discussion that needs to go forward, but she won't be part of it for a while. No, she hasn't changed her mind. But what she has done is, I had posted elsewhere on the internet this story yesterday, and the title was Michelle Stone Bends the Knee. Well, I guess she got back up and put on the boxing gloves.
Kind of halfway back up, maybe. Because the boxing gloves would be to keep it up on your own channel.
I love this. I absolutely love this. And I hope that my interpretation is right, that she's involved in this up to her eyebrows, and that she is sticking it to the church, and that she is standing up to these people who are trying to silence her. I wonder if this was planned all along. I don't know. I wonder if, let's just put it this way. When she put up her video yesterday, it went pretty viral, and the comments were through the roof. And there were so many comments that were telling her how much Michelle had meant to this person and how they still need her and want her. I don't know if this was planned all along or if she changed her mind because of that. I would like it better if she had planned it all along, because I appreciate that kind of conniving. But these are the facts as we have them now.
Can I ask?
And I did click on, and just so you know, I clicked on one, and yep, it's exactly the same thing. In fact, it is not even changed to the point of changing the title where she says at the beginning, "Welcome to 132 Problems." It's all the same.
Can I ask, are all of her videos there on the new channel now?
Not yet. It's just repopulating. Now, this was half an hour ago. I took this, and you can see one of them was put up 29 minutes ago.
Okay.
And that was episode 50. Episode 26 was put up 38 minutes ago. I think they hit a button and they're all coming up at different times.
Right.
I don't know. And this one at the top, it says new. So I saw that just as it had popped up.
I'll just note there's a scenario where somebody approaches her knowing that whatever she's being asked to get rid of, and they're like, hey, if you want, I'll just take those. And okay, you can have them. And he gets to go back to the church and say, I got rid of them. Someone else is the curator of these. Someone else is hanging on to these, and I sold them for $10, whatever it is, And how would the church prove otherwise? As somebody noted, by the way, somebody said she gave a carefully worded denial, which is sort of ironic.
They have the spirit of discernment to help them figure out what happened.
But can you imagine, as podcasters with a prolific catalog that you guys have? I mean, way beyond what I have. Can you imagine giving that away unless there was some kind of pressure, unless you had changed your mind about your content and wanted nothing more to do with it? But that's not what happened. She put it somewhere else. I can't imagine doing that unless there was extreme pressure on me to do that.
You're right. And something that occurs to me is she did have it planned in advance, which is why in this 12-minute video, she says they will be taken down in the near future. Because something had to happen before she took them down from 132 problems. And that's what's been going on in the past, 24 hours.
Or maybe 2 weeks. She did say in the video that it had been an interesting 2 weeks. They've been working on things. So there could have been plans behind the scenes.
Well, I got to tell you, I got a whole new respect for Michelle Stone. If that's what she did, then good for her. She will go down in history like Joan of Arc. We will sing songs about her.
Oh, Bill, are you seeing the comment that someone took responsibility for it?
Let's see.
Whether they're serious or not, we never know.
For doing what in the comments?
Somebody stole them. Somebody downloaded them and put them up, and maybe people
do that in the comments all the time. We have a lot of I am Spartacus people watching.
Yeah, you really can't.
They're wonderful.
I'm going to call her Michelle Stones now because she's got stones.
And here's the thing: he didn't download them. I downloaded them.
Yeah, RFM. I downloaded them.
No, yes. I'm Spartacus.
Exactly. Okay, so now we've got it all. We all downloaded them because if we could have, oh, good Lord, we would have. Absolutely.
Yeah,
we did.
That should not go into the memory hole.
Wow, what an exciting night. And now to the new. Now, this is the headline, but we're going back a little bit just to yesterday to where this whole thing started, if you don't know. And here she is. Now, I've watched a number of different videos. I should say parts of different videos. I have got to tell you, I have never seen her looking so radiant. And I thought, at the time, I thought, wow, it's a sad thing to have to get rid of your podcast. At the time, you just figured out, you got the lighting just right, the makeup, all the stuff that we have to worry about as podcasters, right? And that is just, oh, yeah, perfect. But now I see it is the glow of the inner fire of conviction. And there will be a recompense. Yeah. Okay, so can we play this, Bill? Like just for the first, I have a clip on here, so it should just go to like a minute and 15 seconds. And this is what everybody saw yesterday morning who was watching.
Welcome to 132 Problems, Revisiting Mormon Polygamy. It is with a very deep and abiding sense of gratitude that I record what many of you will be surprised and perhaps disappointed to know will be my final episode. I have decided as I look around at the various pressures and responsibilities and desires of my heart, I have decided to stop this podcast, and I will also be taking the podcast down. I know that I'm sure there are some people who will be very thrilled to hear that, and think there are more people who will be devastated to hear this. I feel a great sense of responsibility, a deep obligation to do my best to explain as much as I can and to encourage others to continue in this conversation. I think that amazing things have been done, an amazing conversation has been started that I think is worth continuing. I will simply not be a visible part of this conversation for the foreseeable future.
And once again, it's hard to find a place to cut it off, but I got as close as I could. So that was what was happening yesterday morning on Sunday, May 4th, 2025. And apparently even then, she knew that she was going to take down her channel, her podcast under 132 problems, and that they would be put up again the following day, or the same day, I guess, on a new channel, 132 Solutions, obviously referencing the 132 Problems podcast.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah, please
I
do.
have gotten a note from Culch. I think you guys got the same note, where really there is someone in the chat saying, I have created this channel. There's a name without the permission or knowledge of Michelle.
Well, of course.
And this
What do you
seems-
mean? Where does that say that, in the description or in
It's
the?
in our live chat. We must have
Yes.
missed it. Culch
It's
took a
both.
picture and sent it. So
Oh, I
don't
see.
know.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's
it's not
both.
just somebody going, I did it. This is someone who gives their name, calls
Okay.
himself 132 Solutions, and say that they have done it without her permission or knowledge.
Yeah, so here's the 132
Okay.
solutions, reclaiming the polygamy narrative. And then also, I put it up on the screen here because I went to that and looked at the about. It is on the description of the channel too. So the 132 solutions, this is no way affiliated with the former channel of Michelle Brady Stone. This is a fan site of the research content Michelle provided. And as independent Mormons, we feel this narrative will preserve testimonies in the Book of Mormon and the restoration of the Church of the Church of Christ, founded by Joseph Smith.
Oh.
Again, as long as they don't tell anyone who they are, whoever they are, how could you argue it?
Oh, easily. The thing is that what will you do, 132 Solutions, when and if you are contacted by Michelle Stone and asking you to take down her content? Because she just got leaned on by the powers that be for breaking the deal. That's the question. And we'll see how this plays out. This is so exciting. Right now, 132 Solutions, hey, great. And by the way, there's at least 132 of you out there who could do something similar. And we could make a many-headed Hydra. Yes, I think I just said Hail Hydra. Many-headed Hydra. And they could be in lots of different places. Of course, that's just if you want to do that.
Well, and someone pointed out in the chat that Michelle did say later on in the video that she wants this discussion and this narrative to continue. It will have to continue without her voice, but she wants other voices to pick it up.
Yeah, so apparently she's not going to be making any new ones under this channel,
Correct.
right?
So she may approve of this. Somebody is picking up the torch and running with it, handing it off to someone else to keep this narrative alive.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And by the way, when I put up my channel, I didn't have any permission or knowledge of Michelle either. Totally in the clear. Okay.
Sorry, there's
So,
that.
yes. And this is another interesting thing. I thought it was a mistake at first, but then now that I know what happened as of an hour ago, I'm wondering, comments are turned off for this video. But were they? No, they weren't. And I took it and put it over on my Facebook page. Looks like the church has ordered Michelle Stone to take down her podcasts to avoid excommunication. And under that, oh yeah, that's what I said. Okay, 132 Solutions, you're brilliant. We love you. Get out of here. Radio Free Mormon, I said, the hardest part has got to be realizing Brian Hales was right. This was the most unkindest cut of all. And then someone else on her YouTube channel, this is under her comments, says Doctrine of Christ Disciples. That was a lot to just say, I am being forced by the church to shut my channel down. If she wasn't forced, she would have said, because that's what we are all thinking and know is happening. And I do think there's something to that. We were talking about that, Rebecca, weren't we, just before the show?
Oh, 100%. When she's doing something like this, she's going to know the number one question or thought everyone's going to have is, oh no, did the church put pressure? And you would start out like this. Everyone, I just want to be clear in what I'm saying. I was not pressured in any way by the church. I personally have decided, this is how it would go. You would say that right up front. You would never leave the gaping hole for all of us to fill in.
Especially after that go-to with Brian Hales.
Exactly.
And that whole cloud. It's other people bring it up too, so it's something she's been living with for a long time. And I think she would make that caveat right out of the gate.
Mm-hmm.
Just to note, somebody here says 132 solutions should be flagged for violating YouTube's policies. Being a fan channel doesn't give you permission to re-upload copyrighted material. That is not fair use. And I'll simply say, unless the original owner of the content gave a nod, wink, wink, won't be filing any sort of copyright violation on you.
Which is why, if we rewind, what I said was 132 solutions. What will your answer be when and if Michelle Stone contacts you and says, I want you to take it down?
Yeah.
All right. So that was said by that person. Oh, this was about me. I was doing a few comments myself about this. Cheryl Ann. I think that's Carol Ann. Says, unreal. RFM, you will be next, unfortunately. And then I had put down there, they seek him here, they seek him there. Do you know what that is, Bill?
I just know it's the crux of it is you can't find him anywhere.
That's right. Those Frenchies seek him everywhere. Is he in
nobody
heaven
likes the
or is
French.
he in
I
hell?
told you.
That damned elusive now.
Stink me.
Sink me.
All right. So, and that's the thing, if people like Michelle are going to lower the bar, eventually they're going to, get to me at the bottom of the barrel. Here's something else. This is something that something Roy Christensen said. I think the vast, vast majority of us agree. Please, please, please don't take it down. Your videos have brought so many of us to the truth. If you must step away and refocus your energy, we understand, but this podcast is a treasure trove of ideas, perspectives, and truth. Well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. He concludes, please do what is right and let the consequence follow. Ooh, that was a jab. And once again, I would have thought that maybe these kinds of comments would have worked on her, except it's obvious from what she said in the video itself that she was already contemplating this entire scenario. Who knows what else she's got up her sleeve. Someone had said, I hope this choice comes by spirit and not flesh, with the intimation that the leadership's involved. And Jacob says, obviously, not Jacob Hansen, obviously the latter, sadly. This is base, vile coercion. Bingo, Jacob, not Hansen. Oh, some fellow named Radio Free Mormon put a comment on Michelle's page yesterday. And it said, the church should not be doing this to you, Michelle. As much as we have locked horns, I would never think you should take down your podcasts. Evil breeds in darkness. Let me know if you need a good lawyer. All the best to you. And then a heart emoji. See, I can be serious sometimes. Spiritual Berserker said, take down podcast or be excommunicated. That threat says everything about those who speak evil of Joseph and Emma Smith. God bless you for revealing to the world that Joseph Smith spoke the truth. You fought the good fight. God recognizes that. Much love. And there's another heart emoji. So I'm putting some of these out here so you can see how much she means to so many people and how distraught they are. Which I guess was an okay price to pay for taking him down and then putting him back up. It's like when Jesus, between the time of the crucifixion and his resurrection from the grave, and how his apostles were all flustered. Oh, look who. It's one of the apostles. This is David Alexander. Remember him from the Yellow Deli?
otherwise known as David Darush.
David DeRouche.
David
Hoorah.
We did a whole
Hoorah.
episode on him. And I don't think we put a dent in his meteoric rise. I think we helped
No.
propel him along. And that's what we meant to do. We're here to help. He goes from cult to cult. He's a cult hopper. He's kind of
on
like
number 3
the
or
David
4.
Whitmer of Latter-day Mormonism, right?
He's on number 3 or 4 at this point, I think.
I meant Martin Harris.
Yeah.
Sorry, I meant Martin Harris, the guy who just hopped from weird church to weird church his whole life.
Dear Jesus.
Well, he could not wait. He got word from, this is yesterday, okay? He's not going to be happy about what we just reported at the top of the show about these videos showing up elsewhere, because he was so happy yesterday when he found out that Michelle was taking down her podcast, that he did a podcast to express his happiness. And can you play that? We just got like a minute and 15 seconds of this at the beginning of the show. He is very, very happy, and he wants to say hooray for a lot of things.
And I'm sorry about the going back and forth, folks. The way our streaming software works, it no longer just switches from one thing over to the other. I have to take one down, remove it, and then add the other up, and it's just an extra step. So here we are.
Hello, good morning. It's David again. It's a great day. It's a great day. You know, Michelle Stone throws in the towel. Thank you, Jesus Christ. Thank you, Heavenly Father. Thank you, the authority of the kingdom of God operating in the Church of Jesus Christ. She just put up a video an hour or two ago saying she's going to stop making videos, and she's taking all of her videos down and staying in the church. That is so honorable. It's such a wonderful and honorable thing. That's one reason why I'm so thankful today. The other reason is it's May 4th. And 1 year ago today, I received my endowment in the Pocatello Temple. Hooray for Israel. Hooray
In a
for
temple
Israel.
far, far away.
Hooray for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Hooray for the restoration. Hooray for Joseph Smith and hooray for Brigham Young, without which this church would have ceased.
And
It's hoorah.
hooray
He should
for
know that.
Hollywood.
You should know that from being in the other 12 tribes. It's hoorah.
Is it really? You don't like hooray?
It's not
shouldn't be-
hooray. It's hurrah.
He
And
shouldn't
he
be
was-
celebrating.
He was
I
equally
know.
as
And you know,
enthusiastic in the
As
12
much as
tribes.
that pissed me off yesterday to see him doing that, I am doubly glad today to think that he must just be stomping back and forth in his double wide and thinking, how can this possibly be? I was so close to victory. It was in my grasp. I was shouting, hooray, hooray to everything in the universe. Hooray to the crickets. Hooray to the children passing by. And now she's put them back up again.
If I can just say, he doesn't get it. He's next. He's got 24,000 subscribers. Good job, David Darush Alexander. Kudos to you. But there is a moment in time in the future where the church asks you to take your channel down because you do not sound Mormon at all.
Mm-mm.
And because of your past, they are already walking on eggshells around your work. And when they come to you, David, and they say you have to remove your channel, there's a big difference between you and Michelle. You are going to be irrelevant when they ask you to leave. Michelle will still appease to a certain group who want to look into the polygamy denial stuff. David's audience is only believing Latter-day Saints, and there's no way he could shift his brand to reach anyone else. He's only relevant because he's a convert who's excited about the gospel.
Oh, yeah. And what's his middle name again?
Darush is this name he was given in his religion. You know how Mormons get a special name. He got a special name.
Oh, Darush. I thought it was Durka.
Close. David should not be celebrating. He should not be celebrating.
Well, and he did the same thing in the 12 tribes as we researched this. He was the evangelizer. I mean, he was hoorah for the 12 tribes, had been looking his whole life for it. Now he's moved on, looking his whole life, found Mormonism. But, you know, he is different from Michelle in that he is allowed to give firesides. He actually is allowed to get in front of LDS congregations in LDS buildings and address them. He's speaking, I don't know if it's happened yet, the Firm Foundation, the Book of Mormon conference. He's one of the speakers. So he is allowed.
Those are Heartlanders.
I believe they're Heartlanders. Yeah, he is
Yeah.
allowed to get in front of an LDS audience, mainstream, and of course Michelle has her niche audience, so different in that way.
All right. So the next one, can I get that? Oh, thank you, Bill. So this is where we're going now. We played that, right? Yeah. Yeah. So this is what I had to make a comment there yesterday. So I made a comment under David's video. I said, thanks for reminding me what a jerk you are, David. And I thought I was being nice because I thought of saying something else, but I thought I didn't want to offend any overly sensitive ears there. Okay. So, well, guess what? I put out a request to our reporter on the street, Nancy Drew, aka Rebecca Biblioteca, to see if she could find out who the Area 70 were over this situation and over where it is that Michelle Stone lives. And she got on it, and it was amazing what she came up with. It looks like the president is Kevin Pearson. What a shock. What a shock. That's like finding out that Darth Vader is behind an excommunication. Oh, well, we would expect something like that. Kevin Pearson and his two counselors, who are Hugo Martinez and Brian Taylor, are first and second counselors. And here it shows that this is the Utah area presidency for 2024 to 2025, which I think includes now. So look, these are the guys. These are the guys. These are the guys who don't want you to know that these are the guys. These are the guys who hide behind the stake president. These are the guys who hide behind the bishop. These are the guys who give the orders down from the top. These guys are middle management stuck-ups. And they would never, ever do anything on their own of this kind of public impact without getting confirmation from the top that it was the right thing to do. It could have started there, but even if it started here, they would never do it without going up there, getting the imprimatur yes, and then going down and taking care of business.
Somebody's saying, by the way, and I think this is true, Pearson is connected to the SCMC. He's either currently in its leadership or he was in a previous leadership of that entity. So that would also play into making sense too on that.
Thank you very much. Good point. And if you don't remember Kevin Pearson, he's kind of been in the news a number of times for some provocative, radical kind of things he said. And this is one of them. You may remember this. This is just like less than a minute long.
Brethren, do not pray about whether or not you should go on a mission. Dumb question. When it's the commandment from a living prophet and it's your priesthood duty, that's a given. Now, you can pray to have the courage. You can pray to have a confirmation of that in your life. But asking Heavenly Father, who's commanded his prophet to command you to go, whether or not you should go, seems like not a very good thing to be asking God. Right?
So it strikes me as I listen to that you could put in there, not going on a mission, but church disciplining Michelle Stone or anybody specifically, right? And he would have the exact same argument. By the way, could you play that again, Bill? Because I think that really struck me this time. Is it possible to play this again? And think about this. It is exactly the same argument. If the prophet tells you to get somebody excommunicated and you pass it down the line, so he's got all the plausible deniability, even this guy's got plausible deniability. That's right. We're dragging him out of the darkness and into the light. He's squirming a little bit, but it's good for him. You'll see. We are bringing this out into the light, and just the stake president and the bishops are the ones who are supposed to be on the hook for this.
I just want to note the missionary that is to his right, our left, immediately, about waist about in the same place. That first row back behind that girl.
Yeah.
Watch his body language in the beginning and then also at the very end as well.
Okay.
Brethren, do not pray about whether or not you should go on a mission. Dumb question. When it's the commandment from a living prophet and it's your priesthood duty, that's a given. Now, you can pray to have the courage. You can pray to have a confirmation of that in your life. But asking Heavenly Father, who's commanded his prophet to command you to go, whether or not you should go, seems like Not a very good thing to be asking God. Right?
He's just smirking all over the place, isn't he? He kind of looks like you, Bill. He looks like a young Bill Reel.
He's having a good old time.
Well, I think that this guy, he would do his own mother if Russell Nelson gave him the nod. I mean, kill her. I didn't mean anything bad. I just meant murder her.
Well, and I do have to point out that it's area presidency to area rep to stake president to bishop. And so we looked into all of this and followed the chain, but felt comfortable just talking about the one at the very top. But that would be the hierarchy of passing down the message that something needs to be done in this situation.
Yes, his favorite phrase in German, Elder Pearson, his favorite phrase in German is, "We have ways of making you talk." Now, we've got some other stuff here. This was also late breaking. I thought this was going to be the late breaking news, but the fact that these videos are being repopulated, I'll try and stop saying for now she's repopulating because we don't know that. But her videos are being repopulated on a different website by a person who goes by 132 Solutions, who claims quite vehemently that she has no knowledge of his doing it and he's doing it without her permission. So, but I had talked to a source of mine own whose name I cannot reveal. But this is what I was told is generally understood by those close to what's going on. For some time now, Michelle's stake president and bishop have been inundated with tons of letters every week. That was the expression used. Tons of letters every week advocating that Michelle be excommunicated. And some of them would have, she said this, and here's a quote, and here's a timestamp on, on this video, just trying to get all the evidence to her bishop and stake president. An obviously orchestrated campaign where Michelle would be repeatedly called before her bishop and stake president to discuss the letters. Higher ups eventually got involved, and Michelle was told she could either be excommunicated or take down all her podcasts, what we had basically all of us had figured out. But this is new. She was specifically told to take them down without making an announcement to her audience. Because if she made an announcement, then their cover would be blown. And they didn't want her to make an announcement, basically because it would be transparent, as it was, that she was getting pressured by higher ups in the church, which is not what they wanted, because they didn't want us to put up Elder Pearson's picture and say that he is the president of the area presidency over Michelle and was obviously involved.
It also does something else, RFM, which is if she puts a video up, it gives her the alibi that somebody saw the announcement and downloaded the videos and re-uploaded them somewhere. If she just does it in the dark of night, takes them all down, if they show up somewhere else, it would be much easier to say it's absolutely no doubt Michelle Stone.
Okay. Thank you for that. I always appreciate your insights, Bill.
Do we know what has happened to the Journal of Polygamy? She just started that collaboration and had a successful conference last month with, a couple hundred people attending. And that was a huge endeavor and it was really gaining momentum. Do we know? Obviously, she stepped away from that too, probably, but hasn't mentioned that specifically.
I don't know, but it's a huge question because they were just, they went through so much. I've never created a journal. I gotta think it's a lot of work. And they created a journal, got it up and running, and they had their first issue that had come out, correct?
People
and then they had a conference, and now she has to pull the plug on this.
Well, that's why I wonder if it's going away, because I know people that have submitted articles, that have articles in review to go in. It seems like it's midstream. It's right there gaining momentum. And now, is it over? Is she just not contributing? Lots of questions.
Well, there are now. Now, it may be, and I would see it as making sense to me, that perhaps what 132 Solutions is saying is absolutely correct. I honestly wish that she were involved in it because I would think so much more highly of her. But the only evidence we have here is 132 Solutions right now, claiming to be 132, looks like probably is 132, claiming that she doesn't know anything about it. So that's the information we have at present. Bill?
I think 132 Solutions is trying too hard. They are just in the chat demanding that everyone understand this is not Michelle. which actually makes it
Ooh.
probably more likely that at least in some way is connected.
Do you think the 132 solutions doth protest too much?
Doth protest too much, yes.
Oh, well. I guess that's hard to undo now, but you could go back and, delete all those comments and make it look like you weren't so concerned about it. Anyway, so that's the late breaking news. And nobody knows at this point, nobody knows who it is who has orchestrated the letter writing campaign, although names have been bandied about from Brian Hales, who is certainly, a suspect, given what happened. Was that a couple years ago? Was it 3 years ago? But it was on the show and people still talk about it, where he came in swinging at Michelle and basically saying that she's going to get excommunicated, which is why I had made that comment earlier. The hardest part has got to be realizing Brian Hales was right. Now, Rebecca got this to me. It was apparently made on a site of polygamy deniers. So these would be people who would be aligned with Michelle. I think it's pretty good regardless of who made it. So here we've got the woman taken in adultery. I think it's John chapter 9. Could be 10, but I'm going to go with 9. This woman was taken in the very act of defending the prophet Joseph Smith, says the high priest, from the crime of fornication and polygamy. The church handbook says that such should be stoned. And there's a nice little play on stone there too, since it's Michelle Stone. But from their point of view, I think that's a pretty good joke. What do you think of that meme, Rebecca?
No, I think they're trying to make a point that she is simply defending the founding prophet. And what's wrong with that? Mainstream Brighamite church, right? Keyword Brighamite in their perspective, right?
From that point of view, the irony is rich.
Yes.
What do you think, Bill? Anything?
It's a strange day. Again, we get excommunicated for all kinds of things. I've lived it. But having somebody have a different scenario to try to make the church true for people who are learning that the church couldn't possibly be true. She is catering to a group of people who feel that polygamy is abominable and horrific. She's providing them a path to stay. And what you're essentially saying is, we don't want you. If you think that polygamy is bad, you should be quiet and get out of the way. It just makes it harder for people to stay. They're just creating more people who leave, but letting her work sit also has its problems. So I can see that side of it too.
Yeah,
yes, I expect the next move will be the church will go to DEFCON 1, or at least at the area presidency level, and they will send a strongly worded letter to the stake president that he needs to take care of this toot sweet and lean on this person, Michelle Stone. This needs to be taken down immediately. Otherwise, you are kaput.
Yeah, I don't think it's over. And I will say the message that Michelle gives is extremely problematic to the church. For one thing, the people it appeals to are faithful members of the church who are tormented and tortured by polygamy. A lot of those are women, just cannot reconcile it. And this is a message that lets you do that. And she has a huge following. I think all of us can name probably 5 people that just even recently have become monogamy affirmers. It's kind of surprising where you hear it all of a sudden from somebody. You don't expect it. But from the church's perspective, it's extremely problematic because on the one side, they blame Brigham Young for everything, right? He's the one that doctored the journals, that pointed the finger at Joseph Smith. Brigham Young is truly the one that implemented polygamy, right? So this is the Brighamite church. That's very problematic. We're in apostasy because Brigham Young did all the, did Joseph Smith dirty, right? Okay, so that's one way to look at it. The other way is Michelle also showed over and over that Joseph Smith denied practicing polygamy. Now, the LDS mainstream church's point of view is he did practice polygamy and it was ordained of God, this and that. But here's Michelle showing him over and over lying, and saying, I didn't do it. I'm not doing it. I promise Emma. I promise everyone in the Relief Society. I promise Quorum of the 12. I am not doing it. So there you throw Joseph under it's the 2 founders. Either way you slice it, don't come out looking good, and it's problematic for the mainstream church.
You know what the church should do? The church should do the unexpected and weigh in with Michelle and her side and say, okay, you're right. He never practiced polygamy. Huge problem solved. 132 out of the next edition of the Doctrine and Covenants, and we are ready to go in the 21st century.
They've doubled down. They've already doubled down. They already have the gospel topic essays. They've already put out a polygamy cartoon. There is no way to back this out the door. And I really do feel, if you want my opinion,
I do.
that, just the way she carefully worded that video, when she started to quote Ether and talked about she doesn't say it specifically, but she gave the scripture, is it 227, where it says, you are showing your weakness. To me, I can thank you. I'm not a scriptorian. To me, I can picture her, being chastised and dressed up and down by these gentlemen in the church and being shown her weakness. You're wrong, Michelle. This is wrong. You're hurting people. You're hurting testimonies, right? And then what does she say? Just like the scripture, I need to move forward in humility. And so to me, that's something that tells me, she was under duress. She was told to do this and she was shown her weakness. And now she's made the decision to move forward and keep her membership. But I still don't think it's over. There are other polygamy deniers, monogamy affirmers who have been in the same situation, have made a few little concessions, and then pretty quickly excommunicated.
Go ahead, just tell us briefly what you told me earlier about Rob Fotheringham, right?
Yeah,
Rob
exactly.
Fotheringham.
They'll have the same scenario. He's another, big voice in that arena. And as I understand it, kind of a similar thing. And I don't believe he did take his content down. And I believe he was excommunicated. You can correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but I think that's the gentleman I was thinking of. So there are a lot of voices in that arena. I think all of us would be stunned to know how many. And I've talked about it before when I went to the premiere of Who Killed Joseph Smith Part 2, yes, right? Which is a polygamy denier movie. It was a packed theater, over 500 people. And, Michelle spoke. That's the first time I ever became aware of her. And she gave about a half an hour speech. She was kind of just starting out. And she mentioned, this is information that people need to have. So maybe go to your ward and maybe talk about this. So that could be a problem too. But since then, which was, I think, 2 years ago, this movement has been on fire. Mm-hmm. So I don't think they're going to change their opinions just because a voice in the movement has been silenced. If anything, I think it has the opposite effect.
What was the big mistake that the mobs made with Joseph Smith? They killed him.
Yeah, made him a martyr.
What's the big problem that the church just did with Michelle Stone?
Made her a martyr.
The only thing we learn from history is that we don't learn from history. But she's wearing it well. Okay, so let's see here. Oh, there's also, we got to remember this this couple who had a podcast, which is apparently popular in certain circles. I hadn't heard of it. Rebecca, had you heard of it? The Latter-day Struggles podcast before this? Okay, and Bill?
Yeah, I saw a thing a few weeks ago, and then there was some little blip maybe 2 months ago as well.
Okay, yeah, I meant before they got in trouble with the church. Mm-hmm. But Rebecca did?
Yeah, they have a big following. I have podcasted with her before on Steve Pineker's channel. And, they're kind of bridge that gap, kind of that Restore Mormon type of gap where you're in, but you might have questions and they can kind of help you navigate a way to remain in and kind of work things out so that it's not so troubling and you feel okay.
I'm sorry, I said a couple of weeks ago. It's over a month ago.
Yeah.
But this has to do with the same kind of thing. And I'm not sure we had time to cover it at the time on the newscast. So this is a brief notice. This was on Mormon Land, where you can go and listen to the audio of the interview that Peggy Fletcher Stack and Noyce, David Noyes, or Noyce. As practicing Latter-day Saints with nuanced faith, Valerie and Nathan Haymaker, am I pronouncing that right, Rebecca?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's a cool way to pronounce it. Haymaker wanted to help fellow believers grappling with a faith crisis or how they have been wounded by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So in 2022, Valerie, a mental health counselor in Kansas City, Missouri, and Nathan launched a podcast called Latter-day Struggles to address some of their issues and find peace. And there it is, Latter-day Struggles. This is from the webpage. Oh, let me just go ahead and read what it says under there. Your home for faith expansion in and around the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Oops. Misspelling. That D should be small case, shouldn't it be, Bill?
With a hyphen.
Lowercase.
This church makes its name so hard to spell, even people who grew up in it have trouble. Their podcast drew wide appeal, but it also came to the attention of their local Latter-day Saint leaders. After numerous conversations, they say, those leaders summoned the couple to a disciplinary council. Expecting to be formally tossed out of the church, the couple instead chose to resign their membership. Since news of their resignation became public, the Haymakers have heard from thousands of friends and supporters. And if you want to hear more details about that, you can go to Mormon Land and listen to it there. So I wanted to bring that up as well, which raises the question, is there some new purge afoot to rid the body Mormon of these troublesome podcasters? Will no one rid me of this turbulent podcaster? And then I thought, wait a second. Remember last September, excuse me, when I did that video, that RFM video, Bill, where I recorded.
One that got removed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I remember that one.
Tell the audience about it.
You did a video, an episode where you showed a directive that came from Elder Oaks. It was he's the author of it, and it necessitated that the local leadership call for more disciplinary courts. That there were not enough. There's not enough church courts in our church. We need more discipline. Such a weird thing. It's like, could you imagine, like the Methodist guys, like, we don't get enough discipline around here.
I know.
We need more
Beatings will continue until morale improves.
Only in a cult.
But he thinks this is a good idea. And then it got leaked to me by a viewer, and I thought it would be a good idea if other people knew about this. And then the church thought that was a bad idea, so they did a strike against it, and a copyright strike too, right? So we had to take it down from YouTube. There is a gap between 362 and 364, an Elder Oak size gap. But the audio is still available on the website, and that's what the screenshot is of it up there. You can still listen to the audio, just can't see the slides, but I read them all. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, considering who monitors the show, but oh well. We'll see what happens. If something happens, then we'll know that the SCMC monitors the show, and we'll see if they want to give us that satisfaction. So I think that's the end of things. Let me see here. Yes, now we're going to Rebecca's story, and it's a Fairview update, isn't it? Take it away, Rebecca.
It is a Fairview update, but I just have to say, Michelle is a lovely, lovely person. I have podcasted with her. I have had lunch with her. She is a fantastic person. Whether or not you are on board with her scholarship or research, she herself is a lovely person. So I just want to say that. We should all wish her the best under this probably really time of duress.
Yes, I read that comment. I made the comment for everybody to read, and I read it. So I want everybody to know where I stand, which is this. It is very simple, but it's very deep in my bones, apparently, and I don't realize how deep it is until situations arise that bring it forth, which is, I may disagree with what you say, but I will fight for your right to say it.
That's it.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
If she ever does have to move out of the LDS faith, we'll be holding her land deed over here on this side happily. So.
Yes, I remember that debate on Mormonish, Michelle and Bill talking about the land deeds. No one understood what you were saying, but it was fascinating for like 3 hours.
Well, I guess Michelle won't be talking about any land deeds anymore.
Nope.
Not for the foreseeable future, but of course she will, because now she's going to get excommunicated. And by the way, if I didn't put that, I may not have put that in my update slide, but my source also told me that the writing's on the wall of her getting excommunicated even before she put up the announcement that it was being taken down, which she was specifically told not to do, and just to take them down quietly without telling anybody what she was doing. Like nobody's going to notice. Gosh, these guys.
And it's interesting. We should just have the whole rest of the show about Michelle. Honestly, it's interesting because I did a podcast with her. I think one of the first where she just shared her story. And she told of ecclesiastical abuse situations, with leaders where, they called her to task for different opinions and interpretations of scriptures. And she said she was ready to step away. And this was years ago. But I believe it was like her children that said, no, Mom, this is my social group. You stay for different reasons. So to me, she's always been on the edge, ready to just, kind of step away. So it's interesting with this pressure. It made me wonder if there was other family pressure on top of church pressure. We all know what that's like. So I don't know.
Rebecca, you have chastised me publicly, and I must take it like a man.
I have? How did I
Yes.
chastise you?
I've taken almost an hour on my story, and there are other stories to be told tonight.
No,
I
this was
apologize.
very important and a lot to talk about. And we had a lot of engagement in the comments with people that are into this story. So, we'll go as long as we go. Who knows? It may be Mormon Stories level. We'll see.
Okay, but I got to cut out of here in 5 minutes.
He's not feeling good. His stomach's
Time for
upset.
flight.
He's not feeling well.
They seek him here, they seek him there.
If it makes you feel any better, I always make my stories really short to make up for that. So
That's good.
And I can talk fast. So let's go. Let's do it. Go to the slides quick. All right. Fairview update. I wanted to end where we began. This is the very first thing that happened to the Fairview residents. They received a notice that there was some kind of church structure being built. They went to a stake center and they were addressed by a church attorney. And the very first interaction they had with the church was a threat of suit from the Department of Justice. And this was taped like inside someone's purse, but this is the very first interaction that Fairview had with the LDS Church well over a year ago.
DOJ, the Department of Justice, sent out a memo to all the cities, counties, and states in this nation to say, you need to recognize the federal statute. The Department of Justice currently active investigating lawsuits and investigations and bringing lawsuits to enforce the laws. So this town, if it's found to violate, will need to comply or face enforcement rules from the Department of Justice. Under the United States Constitution and the federal state statutes, the city can't substantially burden the exercise of religion.
Yeah, you can hear it.
Case law has recognized that symbolic speech, including architectural elements, are constitutionally protected.
Yep, that's what they led with. Hi, everybody. The DOJ is going to sue you if you don't comply. And you can hear the reaction. They're like, wow.
They've never heard about the Alamo, I'm guessing. These Salt Lake lawyers coming down to Texas.
I don't know. There are just better ways to say it. And every single meeting we watch and we hear the church representatives, we're like, honestly, there are better ways to lead with it, to ease people into it. Anyway.
So that was a surreptitiously gotten recording of a meeting early on, the first meeting with the lawyers when they came to talk to people in the city?
Yeah, no, they told the residents got the letter within a certain, mileage around it. They showed up at a stake center. The guy got up and said, hi, I represent the church. Now the DOJ has said that you've got to, literally right out of the gate. And you can hear residents just going, what? Wow. That set the tone. That's why I played it. We're ending where we began. And that was over a year ago. So I don't need to rehearse everything that happened in between. I feel like everyone's an expert on the meetings and the square footage and the zoning and all of it. But we did live stream the planning and zoning a week ago. No, both the meetings, the planning and zoning and the town council were moved up quickly because the church missed a deadline. They wanted to make sure this was all taken care of before the new mayor and new town council members are tomorrow is when those are going to be put in tomorrow. So these meetings were lickety split. And what happened at the planning and zoning is the planning and zoning committee said, okay, yeah, we will approve this temple. We suggest that the town council vote yes with these conditions. First of all, the steeple height should only be 68 feet. We got to change the temple name to Fairview instead of McKinney. And let's just shut off that lighting. Monday and Sunday, you're not even there, and also on holidays. So that is the packet of conditions and suggestions that moved to the town council, which was just 4 days later after the weekend. So we also live streamed that. And I looked at our stats just before tonight's newscast. Almost 1,000 people watched this meeting. And this was long. It's pretty incredible that many people are so invested and interested in Fairview. If you look over here, this is the water tower. Throughout this entire ordeal, a lot of LDS residents said, well, there's a water tower and it's really tall. What's wrong with the temple, right? Well, of course, a water tower is needed by a town for water. But the Fairview United residents lit it up green that night just to kind of say, we're here and this is our town. And I think it's really nice. Picture of that there. Okay, so it did pass the town council meeting. It passed 5 votes to 2 votes. They only needed 4 votes to pass it because they did not need a supermajority, which would have been enacted by certain things like the planning commission saying no or some other factors too. So it passed with 5 to 2. And these are the conditions that they passed it with. They said that they approved the application with the following conditions. The lighting must meet the city code. Okay, so that makes sense. And it has to be turned off between 11 and 5. That was something the church had said they wouldn't do. The council said you will do that. And the walls could not exceed 45 feet. That was already in place. And the height does not exceed 120. So while the planning commission and the residents wanted it to meet the codes of 68 feet, the same as the stake center that's existing there, the LDS already has the tallest building. The town council said, mediated agreement said up to 120, we'll go with that. So, and they also said it can be lit every night or every day. No Sunday, no Monday, and no holiday off. There's going to be lighting, but it is curbed supposedly at night. So that was the final vote. There it was. Some people were happy. Some people were not happy. Obviously, it's something that just, concessions on either side. And it was a really long process to get to this point. So there was an article, of course, in a whole bunch of papers, whole bunch of news sources. This is the Tribune. LDS Church wins bitter temple fight, but loses some ground on the PR front. And I thought this was a very astute article in the Salt Lake Tribune because that is exactly what happened. It says in a 5-2. Yes.
And on that slide before, where they're quoting the mayor.
Yes.
Remember when he said, why does this church hide behind their attorneys?
Yep.
It just occurred to me. That is the church.
Exactly. They're not hiding behind them. That is the church.
Yeah, the attorneys.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But most people would never think that, right? Most churches are fronted by ecclesiastical leaders, people that have been to seminary, people who have training in pastoral care. Yeah. Not the case here. So, and this was an excellently written article by Tamara. She's really great. In a 5-2 vote late Tuesday, the Fairview Town Council begrudgingly approved plans submitted by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for construction of the temple, forcing their hand. Mayor Lessner and his fellow council members who voted for the plan said it was the fact that the Utah-based church had made it clear they stood ready to sue the town. We just heard that from the very first second. They made it clear it's our money and we've got it. And we know how to use it, and no one can stand up to it. And we've seen this over and over. If the residents did not approve this latest design. And again, this had been mediated and worked out over the last year, but still not everybody was happy with it. It says, despite the church's concessions, again, you're the applicant. I disagree with the word concessions. Many residents who rose to speak, and there were 44 of them. It was pretty incredible. Everybody stood up, and one cute little LDS lady ended her speech by saying, I say these things and then she caught herself. she goes, anyway, I love the temple and want to see it built. I say these things in the, oops. Yeah. It's hard to remember where you are, right? But despite the church's concessions, many residents who rose to speak raised concern about the current version 120 feet tower. That really was a sticking point the entire night. And they cited many examples of other temples that have shorter or absentee towers. In fact, one gentleman set up, and I'd forgotten the statistic, there are about 70 temples that are shorter than, like the 90 feet. And 11 of them don't have steeples. So there's a lot. They kept bringing up Yorba Linda, a temple in California where the residents had pushed back and the church had worked with them. And they finally ended up with a lovely smaller temple. Everyone kept saying this would fit great here. Why can't we have this here? They asked that over and over. It says Lessner stressed this point repeatedly, asking why church officials were unwilling to reduce the spire height to the Planning and Zoning Commission of 68 feet and 3 inches. Doing so would restrict it to the height of the currently tallest building, which is the LDS Stake Center. They just kept hammering this. They just kept asking. And why did they keep asking? Because there was no answer. There was really no good answer. There was some kind of hemming and hawing. And it says the answer, the project's lead engineer, Tom Coppins, said, came down to inspiration from on high. That's really what they said, because this is what God wants.
Yeah.
In your Belinda, God let the residents have a shorter temple. In Fairview, where it's going to cause all kinds of problems and bad will, ill will, God wants it that way, and he wants it that tall. He said the design of the Fairview Temple, explained Coppins, as you see here, has been prayerfully considered and approved by senior leadership. Senior leadership wants it. God wants it. This is the answer. Further pressed by the mayor, and he pressed. If you guys have not watched any of our coverage of this, it is fascinating. He added the needed to take into account the overall look of the building. I understand that the height of the steeple, and he kept saying this over and over, has a direct proportionality to the size of the building. Exactly. But we've shown many other buildings with similar square footage where there's a dome or your Belinda, something similar that fits. So you guys were there. That was just crazy, wasn't it? How much the mayor just kept trying to get to it. Give me an answer. Why can't it be shorter?
Well, once again, Tom Coppins did not say what he really believes.
Exactly.
He hinted at it. I mean, everything he said he believes, but he didn't say everything. He didn't say God wants the temple this tall. And if he had, then it would have been a much stronger argument that it's protected by religious freedom than just saying, oh, we prayed over it. Because the mayor says, yeah, I've been involved in stuff before. We pray over it too. We try to come to the best decision. I just want to be able to talk to these guys and not to the lawyers so they can pray over it some more and come down to following the code.
Yep. And he really felt, could he have spoken to some senior leadership? They could have come to an agreement. They could have understood each other, but he was never allowed even to permeate the first fringe row of attorneys, right? He never broke through that at all. And I don't think very many people do, not at all. So there was a statement from the church. This was made by Melissa McNeely. She was one of the people that spoke, and she told a very sad story, very tragic, about her own mother being killed at the corner of that intersection where they are building the temple. One of the big things they talked about was safety of their kids who now drive to Dallas for baptisms for the dead, and how worried they were about their children driving. And Melissa told the story about her mom, dying on that corner. So I do wonder about even the safety of the temple being at that corner. But she said, we are grateful for the outcome of last night's meeting and extend our sincere appreciation to the town council for honoring the terms of the mediated agreement. We know that the temple will be a peaceful addition to Fairview and the surrounding communities. The fact that they chose to use that verbiage, I think, shows exactly how tone deaf everybody is, because there's nothing peaceful about this at all. Everything that's gone on, and we've covered every bit of it. So
no, this is the kind of conflict that can go on for generations.
This is the kind of conflict that can go on for generations. And just as I was putting my slides together today, and I don't know, what do you think, you guys? We were going to show the mayor's final speech, but it is 8 minutes long. So maybe you still want to show it?
Yeah, it was really good, because what he did was he stood up, and what I'm really hoping that Michelle did, he did the same thing, which is he broadcast what it was that happened. He says, we're voting for your damn temple because you've got the money and you got us over a barrel, but I'm going to say publicly exactly how you behave throughout.
Yep. And this is when the vote was 4-1, I think, at that point, or I can't remember. Was it 4-1 at that point?
Well, he was the last one.
He was and this really sums it up. This sums all of it up. And each of them made a statement like this, where they said, we're voting for it, but it's kind of under duress, is what they all alluded to. But Mayor Henry Lessner said it the best. This kind of wraps it all up with a bow here.
And what's been happening over the past 15 months. The LDS Church is asking the town of Fairview for a variance in our town zoning ordinance to build a massive structure in a residential area of our town. That's key. The way this has been approached by them is they've been telling us what to do. The town's zoning ordinances have been in place for decades, and the LDS Church was fully aware of these ordinances. I'm especially upset about those who are leaders in our community and surrounding communities. They know what this was going to do to our community. I don't know how I'm going to get over that. I am really angry at you people. Just a couple of you. You knew what was going to happen. The town has multiple religious buildings in place. All of them went through the same process that the temple is going through. One of those religious buildings is the LDS Meeting House on the adjacent property where the temple is supposed to be located. I was on the council when the LDS Meeting House was approved, and the only concern had to do with lighting. The Meeting House has done a great job in complying with the town's dark skies ordinance, and I thank you for that. But my point in that is, to what Ricardo said, this is not about the LDS Church. This is about a really big building in an area where it's not supposed to be. The issue with the temple is that the initial version of it was grossly out of scale for the residential part of our town. The zoning in this part of town allows for a maximum building height, as we all know, 35 feet. The proposed temple was going to be 65 feet high, 43,000 square feet, with a spire went up to 174. And I took all the folks that came from Salt Lake City and other attorneys, press people, and we stood at the stairs down here and looked up at this building and said, this is what the problem is. What they were proposing is twice as big as this building, just the building. Inexcusable. Since the original proposal, thank you. We downsized the building, which we said was our main concern, so I appreciate that. And they're about 30,000 square feet now. It's still a really big building, but we're willing to accept that. The issue is the tower still goes up to 120 feet. And just for completeness in all this is the town offered to help LDS organization to find a location, a suitable location in the commercial side of our town. They were building in the residential. We explained that. We took tours so people could see what the difference was. We would have helped them find a place on this side of town where they could have built as big a building as they wanted to, up to 9 stories. This project got off to a really bad start in the introductory meetings. And people need to take this home with you when you go back to Salt Lake City. The church threatened the town with a lawsuit if it didn't approve the LDS, what they wanted to build. They told our residents if they did not like the massive structure, they could move and an LDS person would pay a premium for their property so that they could be closer to the temple. I mean, that is, talk about neighborly. That happened. We have recordings of it. Along with this process, the only interactions that the town has had with the LDS Church has been through their attorneys. They're very polite, they're very professional, but somebody in Salt Lake City decided upon this location and the design of the temple. Why does this church hide behind their attorneys? Why couldn't someone meet with me or someone else to go through? We could have negotiated this in a better way, and we might have got something much better for both of us. It is mind-boggling. I've been doing negotiations all my life. I've never come up to a point where I can only talk to the attorneys. Attorneys can be in the room, but we've never met with anybody. I want to know who decides these things. And I know, yeah, it's God, but somebody, some group in Salt Lake City decides. It's not like you said. So our zoning ordinances, they've been in place since the 70s. Again, I go back to people knew what you were getting into when you came here. We have 7 other churches beside the LDS Meeting House here. All of them, again, went through this process. Nobody had any problems. We've had dark sky ordinances for decades. Again, the folks who live here know this. So instead of complying, we are now threatened, intimidated, the council, the town, our residents, because you're the world's wealthiest religious organization, you've got unlimited resources against our little town. And yeah, it's been posed as David and Goliath in the press, and it couldn't be a better analogy than there is. I've lived in Fairview for 35 years, and we've, as several people have said over here in the Green Church side, we've been through different things like this on that property, by the way. And one of the things I look back on my tenure as being on the elected official, I wish we would have gone with some of those single-story office buildings that were approved over there. It would have been a lot better. Anyway, I've never seen anything bring our 11,000 people together like this, like opposition to this tall building is. The correspondence I see, and I get all sorts of stuff from your people, and I see your official stuff as well. People send it to me. And the issues were neighborliness. We weren't being neighborly. I would reverse that. You all have not been neighborly. You come into our town, ask for a zoning variance that far exceeds anything that should have been built on that piece of property. Threaten to sue us if we don't agree. And therefore, here we are where we are tonight. None of us up here like what's going on. We don't like the way it's being handled. I go back to when we started this conversation tonight, why can't your Belinda be in Fairview? It still makes no sense to me, other than you just don't want to, which is not a good thing. So I do a thing in church, and I coincidentally, this was done on this past Sunday. Some of you know this. The church is not a building. The church is not a steeple. The church is not a resting place. The church is the people. So when we look at big buildings in places where they don't or shouldn't be, I asked you to think about that. It's the people. The issue is zoning. And I want to make this real important to everybody in the room. This is not about us versus LDS folks in the room. As you probably noticed, I know many of the LDS folks that are here tonight. They are good people. They're my friends. I've known some of them, like Ms. Manowitz is still here. I've known them for decades at least. Anyway, so we made very reasonable things that came through planning and zoning. I thought they were very reasonable. We were going to give you the same height as the meeting house had. And, tonight we've also said we'd go up to 70 feet to be like your Belinda. But the threat of the lawsuit, the financial loss to our town is potentially huge. And I think what Ken put, I think that was really conservative. And we're talking millions of dollars here this could be, and totally dominate what our staff does. Anyway, needless to say, I'm not happy with this, but I'm voting for the 120-foot thing. So we passed that 5-2. So congratulations, you guys can start your temple now. If you want to change your mind, we're always willing to listen. I know that's probably not. We can get you a copy of the ordinance when we're done here, okay? So anyway, so that passes 5-2, and we're going to go on to other business.
Yeah, so you can just hear it in his voice. They are beaten down. It's been the long fight, but today is Mayor Henry Lesner's last day. Tomorrow at the town council meeting, a new mayor will be sworn in. With 2 new council members and then 1 more appointed in about a month. So that was it. That was kind of his last swan song. And it's really sad that he had to spend the last over a year of his tenure as mayor dealing with this. Although, people love him. He's going to go down in history as, like the greatest mayor ever. People
He went out
him.
with a bang.
He went out with a bang.
That was
He did.
huge.
You can hear it in his voice.
And
you
here's
really
the thing that Bill's learned, that I've learned, that you've learned, which is that we don't have the power, but we have a voice.
Yeah.
And if we use the voice to expose what it is the church is actually doing, then that may equal the playing field somewhat. I think it does equal the playing field. How much it equals it, I'm not going to say. That's a personal opinion.
No.
But he exposed what they were doing, and that is his power. And he used it wonderfully and eloquently in that meeting. And he should get a medal for that alone, I think.
I agree. And I think all of us that podcast about this scenario, every step of the way, they are forced to do things out loud and in the spotlight. And just today, as I was putting my slides together, I kind of went over to the Trib and I'm like, oh my goodness, Gordon Monson has written an opinion piece. Are tall LDS temple steeples really worth fighting for? And he's saying exactly what we're saying. And so the message is getting out. He says, is a fight over the design of a holy place worth having? Or is neighborly peace a better course for the church bent on building big, beautiful, bulbous houses where it says the Lord can dwell? These are questions that appear to be rising as high as some temple steeples erected by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Every time a dispute emerges over the temple dimensions, pitting neighbor against neighborhood and city leaders versus church leaders, resulting in antipathy, legal threats, and actual lawsuits, it's easy to wonder if such conflicts are worth it. Is it doing more damage than good? This is what we're trying to say. The answer is they do more damage than good. So he sees this. A building is a building, even a venerated one. Does God care about its exact length, width, height? A saintly sermonizer once preached, "Blessed are the peacemakers and blessed are the meek," as opposed to "Blessed are those who win votes in contested city council meetings," and "Blessed are the powerful who grapple over square footage." Latter-day Saints might argue that their temples are special spaces that are drafted and depicted by divine inspiration, not only to honor God and bless the lives of church members who worship here, but also to shine a bright light from either a literal or figurative hill for all the world to see. The problem for more than a few neighbors in some cases is that the lights are a little too bright, and what might be an inspiration to some is an intrusion to others. And that is one thing that we hear over and over. Once it's built, you'll see. You'll love it. And the stories were told at that council meeting over and over. People hated us at first, and then they started to love the temple and call it our temple.
Our temple.
I do not believe any of those stories. And I don't believe that the grounds can be utilized in the way that they're describing. Can you have a picnic there? Can a same-sex couple walk and hold hands on the temple grounds? I don't believe. Can you play a frisbee?
Some of the non-Mormons liked it so much they started calling it Shirley Temple.
Yeah, sure, Shirley Temple. I just think they keep saying you're welcome on the grounds and you're going to love it. I just don't know if they really believe that. Maybe they really do believe it. The article is really good, or the opinion piece. You should all go read it. But he ends by saying, after all, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is a missionary church, a faith that converts, that courts converts. The opponents they face in these disputes may be the same people the church wants to enlighten and inspire. Again, this is how you're treating your converts. Do you not understand that these residents here are the people that your missionaries are going to go and seek out? Spire heights and nighttime lights probably aren't worth ticking off community members that the faith's temples seek to invite in or spark some level of spirituality within. Does Jesus really care how tall the towers are, how vast the dimensions might be, how great the spacious the square footage is? Surely holiness to the Lord in modest form is enough. And I thought that was great.
Apparently Jesus does care. He cares an awful lot because he gave a whole vision to Nephi about a great and spacious building.
Yeah,
so he obviously cares.
Every time a tall tower is mentioned in the scriptures, it's with a negative connotation. And we had one of our Cody residents say to us early on, I don't understand. There's that scripture about the Lord does not dwell in houses that are built by man's hands.
Yeah.
Why do you guys think that the Lord lives in your temples? So anyway, there it stands now, and we'll keep you updated. I don't know if they'll start building right away or what will happen, but it passed 5-2. And as the mayor said, okay, you can start building your temple. That's what he said. So
Rebecca, can I get your confirmation on something in you too, Bill? Okay. My experience as a member of this church is that we were very, very regularly told to do missionary work. And that a very important component of that, in addition to, having the missionaries meet our friends and giving out copies of the Book of Mormon and all that sort of stuff. But we were supposed to conduct ourselves as a good example of the gospel of Jesus Christ so people would see how we behaved and be interested in finding out why. True for you, Rebecca?
No, you're absolutely correct. And I will say that temple building in the past has been that way. I have had conversations with former temple architect Laura Lee Hall, and she talks about going to towns, having community meetings, talking to people like Yorba Linda, working with them. Let's find out, let's come up with something that everybody feels good when it's over. I have no idea why. Why risk this negative PR? This is around the world headlines about Fairview. I get a little Google LDS temple update. When this happened, I mean, we're talking, 30 articles all over the place about this with this negative connotation. I don't know why you would invite that. I don't know why you would want that.
Why the difference?
Well, I would like to say change in leadership, to be honest.
Which leadership?
A top leadership, change in the ego of leadership. That's my opinion.
Okay, but President Nelson has been, He's been president for over... let's see, 18. So
yeah, I'm talking about prior to that, Hinckley era.
Prior to 8 years
Prior to that, yes. This is
not just prior to this temple.
No, prior to Yes. The current regime, it was a very different day in temple building, and they seem to care more about PR and goodwill and neighbors and their missionaries having success in certain towns.
Well, this is a golden opportunity that they're blowing, but apparently, according to you, they used to make use of it, which is that this is a situation where the people of the city they're forced to have interactions with Mormons, right? And it's about something that everybody's concerned about, and that's what a great opportunity to be a good example, to act
is.
like a Christian.
Well,
And so-
and in the very first city that we ever worked with, Cody, and I've said this before, the residents group that contacted Mormonish just to find out more about what the LDS Church was about, they were really confused about what was happening. And they said to us, we are church-going people. We all have our own denominations in this residents group. The LDS is a church-going people. I'm sure we can work this out. This is what they said. Within a month or so, they said to us, this is not a church. What is this? We didn't know much about Mormons before. We do now. And it was not in a positive way.
No, if I were in the neighborhood group, I might, I don't know, what would it be? It would be July 20. Is it July 20? No, it's September 11th. We could have a cosplay reenactment of the Mountain Meadows Massacre on the temple lawn.
It is kind of like that, isn't
It
it?
would be an annual thing. It would bring the community together, I think. Bill, what do you think of that idea? I can't even see you back there.
I know he's behind all the comments. Anyway, that's all I have. I'm done. If we have Bill's comment, we can move on.
If you have anything to say, Bill.
I don't have anything to say. I'm engaging the chat and trying to put comments up on the screen and respond to some of them. So
You're amazing. Thank you so
moving on.
much.
I am amazing. Look at
Oh,
that.
is this for you? Is this yours though?
It's Bill's
This is-
story, finally.
Yeah. So
Hey, mind yourselves in the chat. Bill's got a story to do.
He's got
I don't
several.
even know what that means.
It means don't misbehave for like 5 minutes.
Give
they
him a
can
break.
behave or misbehave. The Salt Lake Tribune this week, one of the articles there, even for Latter-day Saints, crosses are a hot accessory at the intersection of faith and culture. The article talked about politicians that are emphasizing the cross that they're wearing, but the article's main emphasis was on Latter-day Saints. So in a cultural twist that would have once been unthinkable, in LDS circles, crosses are showing up more and more among Latter-day Saints on jewelry, in art, even tattooed on bodies, which used to also be a big no-no. Putting a tattoo of a cross on you is a double whammy.
It is.
It
It's
should
a double
be enough.
whammy, but you never have to worry about getting one if a vampire shows up because it's that tattooed on your body. It's perfect.
It should be enough. Getting those two things should be enough to guarantee you the TK smoothie,
Yes.
but Mormons are doing it anyway.
You
So,
just have to be sure to always walk around naked.
right. A New Salt Lake Tribune article explores this shift, highlighting how younger generations of Mormons, especially those with mixed faith families or converts from evangelical backgrounds, are increasingly reclaiming the symbol long shunned by official church culture. Though the LDS Church has historically avoided the cross, favoring the risen Christ over crucifixion imagery, he is risen indeed. This quiet resurgence reveals a broader generational shift toward Christian solidarity and personal expression. While the institutional stance remains cautious, individual saints seem less concerned with what the cross used to mean and more interested in what it can mean now in terms of LDS theology, that is. And I'll just note, this was the most important quote from the article, and I think this is the very wiggle room the church doesn't mind. When Brianna Anderson, a social media specialist in Orem, Utah, visited Jerusalem in 2022, she purchased her first cross necklace, even though the cross is not a common symbol for her religious affiliation. It's more than not a common symbol.
Yeah.
Even recently, Elder Holland has emphasized that the cross is not a symbol of the LDS Church, and numerous prophets, seers, and revelators have said the same before him.
Yeah.
But her response, Brianna Anderson said, even though it's not a symbol of the church, she said, it can be a symbol of devotion to Jesus Christ and believing in him. In other words, the church may not use it, but there's nothing stopping Latter-day Saints themselves from using it.
That's heresy.
Well, it would have been 10, 15, 20 years ago. The necklaces had become more popular with younger congregants of her church and in broader Utah culture, Anderson 26 added. I'll just note that I've seen crosses more in the last 5 years on garment-wearing Latter-day Saints, although I can't see those garments anymore. They're they're getting narrower and narrower. But I could
that's a
see
double whammy too. You've got the cross and the garment. You're double bagged for your protection.
You look like a regular Christian. How are we ever going to tell anyone apart?
I know.
So that's all I've
we'll
got.
show the cross, but we don't show the garment.
That's all I've got for this story. I think at the end of the day, though, the church isn't going to care about members wearing crosses. It will let all of its members wear them. It'll continue to voice its own stance that crosses are not part of the LDS church's symbolism. But if it makes everybody feel better, if they walk around with some crosses around their neck, I just don't think the church is going to say much.
I think they're going to embrace it along with Good Friday and Holy Week and every other Christian abomination that was created by the mother of harlots.
All in good time.
Well,
So
and
let's
that's the
see.
thing. It wasn't just that the church was ambivalent about it. We don't really follow it. They were absolutely saying no crosses. Like, you did not wear a cross. When I see a cross sold at Deseret Book, that's when I'll know. Right now, they do have a necklace that represents the resurrection. We've shown it before. It's sort of a dome, and it has a tomb half open. It looks like a taco kind of, and that is the
Taco Bell necklace.
The Taco Bell necklace that represents. But I do know missionaries that wear crosses, and I know a lot of younger people wear them, and I think it just makes everybody look more mainstream Christian.
Yes, Mormons are becoming Christian just as Christianity is going out of vogue.
That's it. We're always 20 years behind, if not
Just
more.
a little late to the party. I know it's starting to increase, and we all hope that it'll continue to swing. We'll become a religious nation once again. But really bad timing for the Mormons.
Yeah, well, that's all for me. Back to you, RFM.
Thank you so much. I was waiting for you to give the ball back so I could proceed. Now we've got a red slide. I think this is another story by our very own Rebecca Biblioteca.
It is a story, and I do have a video to start out with. Now, this was a story that's kind of ongoing. It developed last week. Interesting. There are some little tangents that I'm going to go off of on this story. So if we can just roll this video. It's about a husband and wife and their sons who were arrested, and they are LDS, and it has to do with Mexican cartels and money laundering. It's almost like Ozarks, if any of you have watched that show before.
Yeah. Sounds like a clear and present danger.
Yeah, it's pretty dramatic for this couple who live in Sandy, Utah, I think is where it is.
Sandy, Utah.
New at this noon hour, a wealthy Utah couple arrested in a multi-state raid with U.S. Marshals. The couple is accused of money laundering and smuggling oil into the U.S. from Mexican cartels valued at over $300 million.
News specialist Brian Carlson is breaking the story for us this afternoon. He joins us live from the newsroom. Brian, walk us through what we know right now.
Well, Sharon and Tamara, we know that James L. Jensen and his wife Kelly Ann Jensen were booked into the Salt Lake County Jail on Wednesday. The couple and two of his sons being federally indicted for allegedly conspiring to smuggle in 2,800 shipments of crude oil from Mexico that they knew was illegal. According to our KSL tipster, the arrest happened Wednesday here at their $9 million, 26,000 square foot mansion in Sandy. In documents from the U.S. District Court in Texas, the couple wouldn't let marshals in. The tipster telling KSL, marshals then showed up with a battering ram. The indictment reveals James and Kelly and two of his sons, Max and Zachary, conspired to launder proceeds from sales of illegally imported crude oil. The payments for this crude oil were directed to businesses in Mexico that operate only through the permission of Mexican criminal organization, and that James Jensen was aware that the payments he made were going to these Mexican criminal organizations. The couple's arrest happening the same day as a raid on his company, Arroyo Terminals in Rio Hondo, Texas, near the Mexican border, being reported by multiple Texas news outlets. U.S. District Court ordering the Jensens to forfeit any money gained from the smuggled oil, including his company, this additional home listed for the family in Draper, as well as bank accounts, oil tankers, and new cars, totaling $300 million. James was scheduled to be released from jail this morning under GPS surveillance. Our photojournalist in the neighborhood saw him back at home earlier this afternoon. We expect to learn more from the U.S. Justice Department in the coming days. In the newsroom, Brian Carlson, KSL 5 News.
Brian Carlson totally wearing garments.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is just a crazy story, but there are really interesting elements to it. I will say that battering ram as they, burst into that mansion, the couples, even my dogs are excited about it. The couple says, of course, that they were trying to open the door, and at that moment they burst in. So there's a little confusion there as far as what exactly happened.
We're just unlocking the door.
Yeah, we were just struggling with the little, so anyway, interestingly, it looks like the two sons who are adults and help out, one owns part of the company and one's a marketing person. They were arraigned, am I using this correctly, in Texas. And the parents went before the judge in Utah. And so this is where I thought the story got kind of interesting. So it says the two brothers were charged in Arroyo Terminals, that's the name of the company, case, pled not guilty on Tuesday. Maxwell Sterling Jensen, who co-owns the company with his dad, and then Zachary Golden Jensen, who handles the marketing and the business development for the company, pleaded not guilty on Tuesday afternoon. Their attorney, last name of Guerra of Brownsville, who represents Maxwell, did not make any comment at that time. Now, Maxwell and Zachary, these are the brothers, returned to court on Tuesday wearing orange jail uniforms and silver handcuffs. Their grandfather Gordon and their brother Tyler watched from the gallery. Assistant U.S. attorney who is prosecuting the case asked the U.S. magistrate judge to hold Maxwell, that's the brother that owns part of the company, without bond. Maxwell worked closely with cartel-affiliated businesses and had developed connections in Mexico. He also frequently traveled to the Bahamas, where the Jensen family owns a home and maintains bank accounts. The attorney representing Maxwell said, but my client is a hardworking father of 5. So basically they're trying to get bail. Is that right, RFM? And the judge is saying, I don't think so, because look, he's got a house in the Bahamas. He has all these connections. Flight risk, right? Isn't that what they're thinking? Because,
the two things that a court is supposed to take into consideration when setting bail are the seriousness of the allegations and flight risk. Okay. Yeah. But I thought, and maybe I'm out of date, I don't know. Pretty sure it's the case in Washington that you cannot, you have to set bail as a judge. Now you can set it as high as you want, but you have to set bail unless it's a capital offense. And maybe that's different in federal court.
Yeah, I don't know. So it goes on to say, just like his parents, the lawyer is saying Maxwell should be released. And we heard in that video, the parents were released right away, pretty much.
Is that released without bail?
With the parents?
Yeah.
Yes. And we'll see that on the next slide. This is why the story is interesting. This is why I wanted to get into this. So the lawyer's saying, and this is in Texas, the comparison is Texas to Utah. And I found that really interesting. So here in Texas, the judge is saying, like his parents, Maxwell should be released and he'll accept any conditions requested by the judge. However, the judge ordered Maxwell held without bond. Does that mean without bail? There's no way he can do anything to get out. Okay, he's in. The court is concerned, said the judge, about the inconsistent information that Maxwell provided about his travel to the Bahamas and his use of marijuana.
And his use of marijuana, especially.
Yes,
that's especially troublesome. No bail for someone who uses marijuana.
Yeah. As a hardworking father of 5. And I did see that all these, I think he was the one on his LinkedIn profile that had Brigham Young. They're all, if not active LDS, were active LDS at one time. We kind of confirmed. Zachary, the other brother, the one who did the marketing for the company, his bond was set for $100,000 with a $10,000 cash deposit. And while on bond, Zachary has to remain at home in Utah. So he would go and return to Utah and he would be monitored by GPS monitoring. If convicted on the most serious charge against them, the Jensens face a maximum of 20 years in federal prison, because again, this is all alleged, right? They're just going through the process. So what I found interesting is the difference between these judges' decisions in Texas and what happened in Utah. So I said it's a different story for the parents here in Utah. And here you have a picture of the couple. You have a screenshot from the company where he lists BYU University, Brigham Young University.
Looking at that picture, Rebecca, I would have no idea that these people are wealthy.
Yeah, I don't see it either. I'm not sure quite why. Oh my gosh. Again, everything is alleged here. We're just reporting on what the news has said. Everything is alleged. So the lawyer for the couple asked the judge here in Utah to release James while he awaits trial. and also his wife. So he's saying they don't need to be in prison. They can be released. He said they are active in their church. They're active in their community. They come from stalwart Utah families, the lawyer said. His in-laws, these are the parents of his wife, served in public service for decades, and they don't want to throw all that out the window. Kelly Jensen's father is Gordon Walker. He served in the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development under President Reagan. Good heavens. And her mother served in the Utah State Senate. So heaven forbid you should put the children of someone like that behind bars. That just shouldn't happen.
What does that mean, that her mother was a senator?
I think so. The Utah State Senate. Yeah.
Because the other one sounded singularly unimpressive.
Yeah. I don't know. But
Worked
anyway.
at HUD.
Yeah.
When Reagan was president.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. They just said
there.
that they don't want to throw all that out the window. They come from stalwart Utah families.
Well, maybe they should have thought about that before they decided to go decorating their saloon with my friend.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's happening. Again, everything alleged. He then, the judge, Dustin Peed, the chief magistrate judge for the District of Utah, released James and Kelly Jensen without any kind of bond.
They couldn't afford it, obviously.
They have a GPS monitor, and like the news story said, they're back at home. Saw them wandering around their house. And he said, I am counting on what your attorneys have said here today, that you are the upstanding people that your attorneys say that you are. Which seems very strange. I don't know. Do judges usually say that, RFM, to somebody?
I'm counting on what your attorneys... I was looking over here at this picture on the right, where apparently they're in Egypt on camels. So this must have been in 2020.
Mm-hmm. And you can see they have, throughout their Facebook, they have all of the church filters that you put on. This is the worldwide fasting and prayer, so they're very...
That was 2020, right?
I think it was. I think it was.
I don't know if that was the first one or the second one, but they were both about as effective.
Yeah, exactly. So I just found that extremely interesting.
Sorry, you were asking me a question. I apologize. Yeah. Pete is the judge, and he says, I'm counting on what your attorneys have said here today, that you are the upstanding people that your attorneys state that you are. Yeah. Judge. Yeah. They would say that all day long if they had the chance.
They would. Interesting. And so they take church activity and heritage of your parents into consideration when you let someone go home or decide if they're going to be in jail.
Well, it's a judge's way of tacitly shifting blame onto the lawyer if things go screwy.
I see. Well, and I just had to get a little snarky and think about people that were recently in the news who also were active temple recommending people. Pretty sure you recognize all of them.
These are good people.
Good people.
You can trust these people. You could release these people without bail.
Yep, exactly. And I even had to get even more snarky. And in the bottom left, that is the card from the branch saying, we love you, Brother Bundy. We know that you'll get out soon, Brother Ted Bundy. Yeah. Oh, I know. I told you I was really on one today when I was putting these slides together.
Is that on the left on your screen?
It's on the bottom right on my screen.
Yeah, that's where it is on my screen too.
It's a card from the branch supporting Brother Ted Bundy as he was called into court because he was such a good active member. Anyway, we'll see what happens. But here's what I think is interesting. So this question was raised right away. When you hear about somebody allegedly money laundering and they're active LDS, what do you think about right away?
Money laundering?
I did. I thought about tithing. They must be paying.
Oh, of course. Yes.
Millions of dollars of tithing. This is what came to my mind right away. So somebody on social media said, Brother James L. Jensen and his wife Kelly and 2 sons are active LDS according to his lawyer and under indictment for laundering some $300 million of stolen oil products for the Mexican cartels. Would you expect the church to refund 30 million dirty cartel tithing cash?
Oh, yeah.
Would you expect them to refund it? Might the government go after the filthy lucre pending a guilty verdict? Is this a case of laundering for the Lord? And that just got me thinking, what does happen when there's some kind of ill-gotten gain? It's been tithed. Mm-hmm. The church has it. Do they voluntarily give it back? So I decided to kind of look into it a little bit. I tried to find out, is there certain kind of income or money that the church will not accept? And I thought it was pretty clear cut, but there was nothing in the church handbook on it. I did find something, it was in an LDS Living article saying they were quoting Howard W. Hunter in a manual about tithing, but I couldn't specifically find it. But in the LDS Living article, it says the only kind of increase the Lord wants nothing to do with is the kind that comes from forbidden places like gambling, that would include a lottery, extortion, Interesting, etc. The church will not accept money from these sources. So that's interesting. If you win the lottery, they're not going to accept it. However, in my search on this, I did find faithful threads where people had won money in lotteries and they found ways to pay their tithing. They bought land with the winnings and they donated it to the church. There's a workaround. You can pay tithing if you want. Even
I would have thought if you don't want it, I guess I'll have to keep it all.
I guess you'll have to keep it all. Yeah. So if you don't want to pay your tithing, go win a lottery, gamble, or participate in some extortion. Anyway.
Or you could smuggle oil.
So I thought about a story that I had seen probably like 7 years ago where I thought, I know I've heard this, where the church gave some money back when there was some kind of court case. So I found this headline: LDS Church will return tithing. Donated my man who defrauded 5,400 victims. And this was somebody that stole out of people's retirement accounts. I mean, the stories are just tragic as you go through. So I thought, well, that is so kind of the church to give this money back when it was ill-gotten, it was illegal, and the person paid tithing on it. It's so nice of them to give it back. I should have read more closely, and I did. It said, this is from 2017. It says the LDS Church will return $150,000 of tithing paid by a man who pleaded guilty to taking nearly $25 million from these victims, from their retirement.
That's not a fair and honest tithing.
Oh, no. You'll see.
Who does this guy think he is?
A former CNBC guest expert on wealth management, Curtis DeYoung of Draper, took the money from individual retirement accounts. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Again, this is, like 8 years ago, and ordered to repay all the money. DeYoung had paid $239,755 in tithing to the LDS Church with his wife, Michelle DeYoung. Now, she was not charged, but the Securities and Exchange Commission named her in a suit seeking to recover the funds from the American Pension Services, which she owned with her husband. So she was not found guilty. She was not sent to jail. They paid tithing together, and she was a co-owner in the company. You can probably see where this is going. The court-appointed receiver to recover the funds, and you can probably explain what that is, RFM, somebody that is the one that works to get monies back. Is that right? When they're owed?
It'd be like in a case where you got custody of kids and the guardian ad litem is appointed. It's sort of like the person is appointed in order to administer and oversee the whatever the financial transaction is that the court has ordered.
Exactly. So much for me thinking the church is just going to give this money back. Already in this sentence, there has to be a receiver who's trying to recover funds. And the receiver sued the church for the return of the tithing donations.
They didn't just give it back?
They did not just give it back. They tried to hold it. They had to be sued to return that. I know, I was so disappointed. I read that headline and I really thought, not doing something good. As you can imagine, when the church is asked to return tithing funds, there's an existing careful process for doing so, said.
Which means you've got to get it out of our cold, dead fingers.
Pry it. That's why I have that picture there. Yeah. And this was back when Eric Hawkins was the church spokesman, who Aaron Sherinian replaced.
That looks like Ed Goebel.
It does kind of. In this case, there had been complicated by the fact that there was a request for the return of tithing from a family member who did not plead guilty to the charges.
Mm-hmm.
So you see what I mean? It's a husband and wife paying tithing together on ill-gotten gains, but because she wasn't charged, they're saying, she's not guilty. We can keep this money. So it takes time and discussion, but the church has cooperated fully in the negotiation of the settlement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jeez. So in federal court, the church argued that any amounts tithed by Michelle DeYoung were not recoverable and that the receiver would need to show that each transfer of money from APS to the DeYoungs was fraudulent. So it sounds like they're working pretty hard to keep that money, which just absolutely floors me when you see 5,400 people that have significantly reduced retirement accounts because of this scenario. And they're probably all LDS. This all happens with affinity fraud. It also said it would violate the established clause of the First Amendment for the court to assess the value of personal and spiritual benefit received by the DeYoungs in connection with the donation. So this is kind of a precursor, right, to all these tithing suits. The spiritual benefit, exactly. The church and the receiver agreed to $150,000, a settlement in the U.S. District Court, and that was settled, like I said,
Judge Robert Shelby.
Yeah. So I just have to question this. Okay. So
Well,
I just
you
thought
already
this-
did the math. I was going to ask
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah,
What is the
no,
math on that?
me. I did the math. I had to do the math because I don't even know what the legal cost to defend this was. But they had to give up $150,000. So the estimates of annual tithing contributions are 5.5 to 6.5 million. Billion. This translates to roughly 4.5 to 5.4 million per hour, or 75 to 90,000 per minute. 2 minutes, and the church has already made as much money as they, begrudgingly gave back.
I think that's more than John Dehlin makes.
Maybe just slightly, but I just have to say, I think this was to set a precedent. We do not give it back. If it was paid from a fraudulent organization, we don't give it back. And flash forward 8 years, we're not going to give it back if we ourselves are accused of fraud. I think it had to be to set a precedent. So
did you do any more math, Rebecca?
I didn't do any more math. No,
What I was
just
thinking was they got 150,000, and how many victims were there?
5,400.
5,400?
Yeah. This was massive. This was a massive fraud, mostly of LDS people, elderly with retirement accounts that he was managing.
So 150 divided by 5 is going to be 20, 30. So they're going to get what? I don't know.
Yeah.
$300 each? Is it, or is it 3,000? I'm not sure.
The bottom line is the headline that said the church gives it back. They didn't want to give it back. They had to be dragged into court and probably spent that much in legal fees to be told they had to give it back. So anyway, we'll watch this story. Again, everything allegedly about the Jensen family, we don't know. We're just reporting from the news, and we'll keep an eye out. It's kind of interesting.
John Dehlin says he heard that. I am the mouth that roared.
Yeah.
Happy to have you on board, Dr. Dehlin.
That's right. I think that's all I have. Let me go forward. Yep, that's it. I think we're up to Bill's.
Whoa.
Yeah.
What is this headline?
Yeah,
this is about you, Bill?
Yeah.
It's not. I did want to comment on Rebecca's story really quick. Yeah. Number one, the halo effect. This is a psychological phenomenon where you are trained to see something positive, attractive in another person, and that then influences you about them being good. So, for instance, when Mormon judges let Mormon people off easier because they see another Mormon on the other side of the courtroom, and that person has, because they're Mormon, they couldn't possibly have done the things that they're claimed to have done. So I thought that was interesting. And then I thought this was interesting. LDS Church will return tithing donated by man who defrauded 5,400 victims. And I thought, if those tithing lawsuits went just a little bit different, LDS Church will return tithing donated by church who defrauded millions of victims. would have been a good headline.
Yeah,
if that had happened, because the LDS Church, by its very definition of what it did in the SEC, as well as dozens and dozens, I think it's close to about 100 instances where you can clearly show that they were deceitful, deceptive, dishonest, lying. The LDS Church is returning money of something in which it does itself and collects money for. I think that's sort of strange, but anyway, Mormonism always wins when it comes to the money.
It does. And we'll find out. Allegedly, these people, we'll see what happens.
All right. So the next story here, New York Post, stark naked man high on meth breaks into Mormon church. In one of the most bizarre headlines this week, a Utah man was arrested after leading police on a high-speed chase completely naked.
Was he on a motorcycle?
And reportedly under the influence of methamphetamine. This incident, which began in Utah County, involved a man recklessly weaving through traffic before abandoning his vehicle and fleeing on foot, still entirely unclothed. Authorities later apprehended him with the help of a K-9 unit after he attempted to break into a nearby home. But he did get into the church for a moment. There's the man. Looks like a teardrop under his eye. I think that's one of those tattoos that means something. And
well, he probably had on a cross tattoo as well. He's one of those guys who always has to be ready for the vampires when they attack.
Yeah.
You know what's strange is that I did a short on this today, and the article from the Post I read said it happened in Pennsylvania, and that it was last Tuesday night that he broke in. Yeah, isn't that
What?
strange?
Look here.
Yeah,
Is
it
this
said
guy
all
running
the
around the
country.
nation doing this kind of
That's what I
activity?
was going to say. How did he get from Utah County to and maybe they got
I
it all
wonder
wrong.
if I missed something. Let's
No,
see
it was
here.
very early this morning. So I don't know if there were details that were sketchy or something, but the article I posted from the New
Yeah,
York Post said,
Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So you're
Yeah.
right.
but isn't that strange? Why would this say Utah? Maybe he
Yeah.
really weaved in and out naked across the entire nation.
Yeah, that was a hell of a chase.
I will say this: when law enforcement was asked how they knew, by the way, it is Lancaster, Pennsylvania. When law enforcement was asked how they knew he was on drugs, the arresting officer noted that when this man was running to get into a Mormon church meeting, when he didn't have a responsibility for a talk or a lesson or providing the sacrament bread, they knew right away. Nobody else rushes in to a Mormon church.
No.
I think I may have this thing figured out. I find that when I'm driving around naked and I'm smoking, that I got to be very careful that if the window's down, that the cherry doesn't drop in my lap, because that can immediately precipitate exactly that kind of activity.
I get it. I see it. Crazy Mormonism. That's all I can say.
So that was a great story. Thank you so much for that story, Bill. Are you handing the ball back to me?
It was a little bit of a fun one. Back to you. Absolutely.
It's so
Don't
much
you have
fun.
one more story, Bill? I thought you had one more before
I
my
did. I
final.
took it out because I didn't think it was that big of a deal.
Oh, okay.
And so my stories are limited to those two.
Wait a second. Is that okay? So, but we do have to talk about the person who figured out Mormon Stories. Since
Well,
Mormon
no, I
Stories
have
is
2
watching-
slides. Stick to the slideshow. Okay. 2 really, really funny things I know I'm like reprimanding RFM. 2 really, really funny things in Mormonism yesterday and today. So this one I thought was hilarious. I just put my own short up because I was too lazy to make a slide. So if you want to play that really quick, I filmed it in my car, which is why I look a little weird. But anyway, the story stands. So this has got to be one of the strangest things that I've come across on social media, where someone reported that an active LDS friend of hers had gotten her hands on 2 pairs of the tank top LDS garment. Now, these are in hot demand, and everybody in the ward is buzzing over them, wishing that they too could use these garments. So what did they do? They decided to share, much like sister wives, I guess. Apparently there's a spreadsheet and you can sign up if you have a special event, maybe a family photo shoot or a wedding or something going on, and you would like to be able to wear a more attractive sleeveless outfit. You can go to this spreadsheet and everybody's happily sharing these 2 pairs of garments back and forth until they're available to everybody Q4, which is going to be in the fall. So I guess the restored gospel of Jesus Christ now boils down to just sharing each other's underwear. Let me know what you think in the comments.
That's a great piece.
Yeah, I don't know if you have any comments on that. I just could
do.
not believe that.
I do, because that's like the scripture, greater love hath no man than this, that he share his underwear with his friend. It's in the New Testament.
Yeah. I don't even know what to think about that. So that was, unless you have a comment on that, Bill, that was the first strange thing. And then the strangest of all is,
Strangest. Are you watching, John?
Yeah, I hope John is watching, because we're going to talk about this. The strangest of all, again, from social media. Next slide. Here we go. I'll let him flip it. So this just showed up. Somebody found it on a faithful website, and somebody wrote, a voice of warning, right?
Some
to the other
faithful
faithful
TBM.
members. Yeah, to faithful members, this is a voice of warning. The person says, just FYI, there is a wave of anti-Mormon posts being put on Facebook by a group that calls itself Mormon Stories.
I've never heard
I
of it.
watched a few thinking they may be good, but on the end, they turn against church leaders and doctrine. They are very professionally produced in a studio, and they appear to be professional actors.
Wow.
Certainly not your average member testimonial. No idea who is funding this, but they are paying Facebook for posting, and must be lots of money to produce and pay the actors. What their goal is, other than pull members from our church and deceive investors, which I think they meant investigators, but investors is probably more accurate. I have no idea. This you guys can comment. I've been commenting about this all week. It is just so funny to me, this perspective. RFM, what do you think?
What I think is, it's kind of like, I've watched a lot of Mormon Stories in my day. It's like the Twilight Zone. You have to watch all the way through, and then there's a sudden twist at the end. And that's where they go for the church's jugular. All of a sudden, it's that little bunny rabbit. And it's going around to the necks and the neck and the neck.
I was going to say that along the same lines that they might be good, but on the end they turn against church leaders and doctrine. What the person means by that is our 3 through 7 of the Mormon Stories episode is when it does the twist.
Yeah, but prior to that, they're saying things that the person can go, yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's right. But then when they start drawing the conclusions, that's when the person cognitively fights back and says, that can't be right. And the other thing I think is interesting is just that they cannot fathom that someone who has been a member would be talking like this. It has to be an actor. It has to be a script. Nobody who has been in the church, it can't possibly be. That just cannot permeate the brain.
You wouldn't believe how much they paid me to be on Mormon Stories.
And John's the highest paid actor of all. I mean, he's obviously acting.
And I graduated from Juilliard.
He's been doing this. I don't know what year John started, but
20 years, I think. I think that he has
a
big anniversary coming up, and we should do something special to celebrate.
2005.
I think so.
And this person's like, I just suddenly got caught off guard by this. Just keep watching, whoever you are. I'd go back and watch like the Terrell Gibbons interview and the Richard Bushman interviews, and
I'm just thanking God this person wasn't Paul Revere.
Well, think about this though: the idea that they're highly produced and someone's funding them. Do they not understand the amount of funding that the LDS Church pumps into their content that is everywhere, so highly produced? None of us have that kind of funding. I mean, it's just a funny post all around. And I do hope this person keeps digging, keeps watching, keeps trying to figure out what all these episodes are.
If this person were Paul Revere, wouldn't Paul Revere be writing in 1795?
Probably.
Yeah.
One if by land, two if by sea.
It's good that Paul Revere knew what was going on. Otherwise, who knows where we'd be today.
Yep, I thought this was great. It just, keep Mormonism weird, right? That's what happens.
Mm-hmm. But good on this lady do you know if it's a woman?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, we whited out the names and it was whited out when I came across the post, but it seems like that it was.
Okay, well, I'll say this person.
So, yeah.
Good on this person for calling out the alarm.
That's right.
So people will be forewarned and forearmed against Mr. John DeLynn, whoever that person is.
Don't you feel that then people who she warned will go, Mormon Stories? What's that? And I mean, it's like when a leader gets up and says, don't any of you read the CES letter?
Yeah.
Right away, everybody's like, I got to make sure I'm not doing it. So,
yeah, sir. Like my dad said, don't ever look at a Playboy magazine.
Exactly. Or like you go to a fireside as a youth and they say no heavy petting, and you're like, what's that? You learn all the things, right?
Yeah.
Just the articles, RFM, right? Just the articles.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I never read a Playboy article in my life. Have you, Bill?
I wasn't really concerned with reading the article.
I think I tried once and I said, I got better things to do.
No, they have some pretty heavy hitting articles in Playboy. And I've talked about this before. I talked about it last week. Remember the subscription that BYU had, but they have some articles that other magazines could not get.
Yeah, they got interviews with very, very significant people and authors and political leaders and Jimmy Carter and everything.
Yeah. So if someone says, I'm just reading the articles, that may be true. Give them the benefit of the doubt unless they're holding the magazine like this.
All right. Wait a second. Right. I'm so sorry. Actually, my mind was occupied with trying to think about, we're coming to the end of the show and I got to lead us out. And you said something and then Bill laughed and then I was left in the dark. Could you
I said, trust them if they say they're just reading the articles, unless they're holding the magazine like this.
Very, very good. Very
dead giveaway.
Where was your other arm?
I'm sorry, I missed it the first time.
No, I'm just
way below the screen.
All right.
Is that it for everybody?
I think so.
Okay, I just want to go back to the opening story with Michelle.
Yep.
The big story of tonight. Michelle Stone, I pray to God that you're doing this to tweak the church and that this is done with your complete approval and your forethought, because it sure looks like it could be that way. And I hope it is, because if so, you are my hero. So having said that, let's go ahead and close it out. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Thank you so much, Bill Real. Thank you so much.
Do you want to talk about what's coming up next? Because you guys have a huge thing coming up next.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Bill, could you tell us about the huge thing coming up next?
Well, first off,
sounds like the monster at the end of the book.
Oh, it's not on there. Let's see here. I can put it up on this one.
Bill is
first off,
amazing.
you released something on Saturday. I wanted to give you a chance to mention this.
Great. This was great.
Thank you. Thank you. Just very, very significant, I think, new evidence that is just cementing more and more till the point where it's almost becoming irrefutable that Joseph Smith used the Adam Clark Bible commentary in his Book of Mormon production. And I think it's pretty clear that he had been through this and read through a lot of this before he did his Book of Mormon dictation in the spring of 1829. Yeah, I think so. So we've got such interesting ideas. They're kind of unique ideas in the Book of Mormon. And there aren't a whole lot of them, but there are a number of them, okay? And they're significant in that they don't appear anywhere else in the scriptures, all right? And they seem to have a unique twist on something in the Old Testament, and that unique twist is not preserved in the Old Testament text. But then apologists come along and say, well, wait a second, we found these ancient documents, and these ancient documents preserve this twist. And Joseph Smith, he couldn't have known about these ancient documents with this unique twist in order to copy it into the Book of Mormon. And that's the argument I made all day long when I was an apologist. And now more and more what we're seeing is that those unique twists were available to Joseph Smith as mediated through Adam Clark, who had access to all these ancient documents and knew all about them, and put a lot of that information in his commentary in the Bible that Joseph Smith had access to. And this is another example of it. Plus, I'm sorry, we're going long. Plus, there's this huge thing about this that really makes it clear to me that Joseph Smith was intentionally writing a history of the peoples of the Americas, all right, as far as he knew them to be. One of them actually existed and two of them did not, and yet they're found in the Book of Mormon, just as we would expect them to be written at that time and that place, and I mean the early 19th century in New York.
Yep, it was a great adventure novel. It was never meant to be a religious text. It was an adventure novel and a history of the people.
I think that there's very much that component in it.
Yep.
I don't know if I can go in all whole hog with your other conclusion, but yeah, okay.
We'll have to debate someday.
Yes, yes, we will. And while we're debating, or before we debate, what are you doing tomorrow night on Mormonish, Rebecca?
We have a fabulous episode. We have Randy Bell, and we are talking about Heaven's Gate. And I don't know if everybody knows, but Randy Bell professionally is known as the master of disaster, which means he goes around to crime scenes and all kinds of places where things happen and assesses them for economic impact and damages. So he was in the Heaven's Gate crime. He was in that house. Like, he has pictures and he can tell us things, details that you never would imagine. It is a really interesting episode about cult mentality and the bite model, and it's going to be fascinating. We love Randy, and just this insider information he has about the Heaven's Gate scenario. Again, that was the cult where they thought they were going to follow the Hale-Bopp comet, and when that didn't happen, they all ended up putting on tracksuits, tennis shoes, and taking their own lives. So lots of very interesting parallels and discussion with Randy, and that's at 6 p.m. tomorrow night on Mormonish Podcast Mountain Time.
And that's because the tracksuits and the shoes is because you have to run very, very fast to catch up with the comet.
And then Wednesday's Mormonism Live, we will go into a conversation on the history of the dream mine. And there are so many fun twists and turns in this story. So this will be Wednesday, 6:20 p.m. I think folks will really get a enjoyable, entertaining, and enlightening historical episode that happened within Mormonism that I think very few of us know the deep details about.
I know that you have been really excited about it with the things that you're discovering, Bill. So I think that's going to be a great show.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. So join us then on Wednesday. And for the newscast, folks, please like and subscribe. Certainly do that. So RFM.
And do it right now.
Yeah, there you go.
We're waiting.
Yeah, we'll just
do
wait.
that. Could you hit the like button, please? And then the subscribe button. What does the subscribe button look like, Bill? I know what the like button looks like.
It looks like
a thumbs up, right?
Yeah, if they're in a video, right below, you get the thumbs up or thumb down. Give it a thumb up. Yeah. And there's also the button right next to it that does say subscribe. And that way you do get notified when new videos come out when we're doing other things.
Yeah. All right. That's it. So thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you next time on another episode of whatever it is, and definitely next Monday for another episode of the Mormon Newscast, 6 o'clock p.m. Mountain Time. Thank you for joining us. Good night, everybody, and God bless you, Michelle Stone.
That's a wrap for this week's edition of the Mormon Newscast. We appreciate you tuning in and sharing this time with us. Keep the conversation going and stay informed on all things Mormonism. Until next week, wishing you peace and joy. See you next Monday at 6 p.m. on the Mormon Newscast.